Alright, fellow Slayers, time to take a look at the second episode of the day, which is Normal Again. Buffy is set to track down the trio and search his newly rented houses, hoping to find their hideout. Jonathan, who had fallen asleep while on monitoring duty, having not slept properly since Katrina's murder, doesn't see Buffy approach until she's almost on top of them. Ward spots her on their surveillance equipment. Xander summons a demon that attacks Buffy and starts a fight. The demon grabs Buffy and stabs her with a needle-like part of its body. Settling in a mental hospital, Buffy cries out she's held by two orderlies and stabbed with a needle. Buffy wakes up alone outside the trio's lair, hurt and confused, and walks home. Willow prepares herself for talking to Tara, but spots her greet another woman with a quick kiss. Willow walks away, wounded. Tara notices her retreating, but it's too late to chase after her. Working at the Double Meat Palace, Buffy flashes again to the mental hospital, where Dr. Beers announces it's time for her drugs. Willow and Buffy talk about Xander's disappearing act and Willow's attempt to talk to Tara. Xander surprises the girls by showing up at the house. He wonders about Anya and how to repair his relationship with her. The girls tell him Anya left a few days ago and try to reassure him that everything will work out in time. Patrolling at the cemetery, Buffy runs into Spike and they talk about the events of the wedding that didn't happen. A conversation begins between Xander and Spike over Xander abandoning Anya on their wedding day. Willow tries to break it up while Buffy collapses. Xander manages one punch to Spike before his attention is drawn by Buffy. At the mental hospital, a doctor informs Buffy that she's been hallucinating in hospital for the past 6 years and everything she knows about Sunnydale is a delusion. She's more confused when both Joyce and Hank Summers appear. Then Buffy falls back into the Sunnydale world. Willow and Xander get Buffy home when she recounts what she saw and what was told at the mental hospital. When Willow organizes a plan to research, Buffy falls back to the mental hospital. The doctor explains to her parents that she's been catatonic from schizophrenia for all of the past 6 years, except for the brief period of lucidity which Buffy dimly remembers as her time in heaven, and that her life as a Slayer has been an elaborate, improvised hallucination she has constructed for herself in her mind. He also explains what Buffy realizes is its extreme improbability and logicality compared to the mental patient scenario. In Sunnydale, Warren and Andrew return to their hideaway with boxes after leaving Jonathan alone. Leery, Jonathan questions the contents of the boxes and tries to leave the house himself. Warren doesn't agree with that idea and convinces Jonathan to stay in the basement. Willow shows Buffy a picture of the demon that stung her. The Glark Ghoul Kashmesnik, and tries to comfort her friend. Buffy then makes a confession to Willow. In the beginning of her Slayer life, she told her parents about vampires and they freaked out. As a result, she was put in a clinic for her supposed insanity. Buffy wonders if she's still there and Sunnydale really doesn't exist. Willow assures her that isn't true. Xander is back in patrol for the demon that hurt Buffy. Between the two of them, they subdue the demon with force and tranquilizer darts. Dawn comforts Buffy, who dazedly notes that Dawn has been misbehaving and the problems need to be dealt with. Back at the hospital, her mother reminds Buffy that Dawn doesn't exist. Dawn realizes this through Buffy's babbling and rushes from the room. Xander Spike wrestle the demon to Buffy's basement, then chain it. Willow brings up a container to make the antidote, which she must synthesize without using magic. Later, Willow presents the antidote to Buffy in a mug and leaves her to drink it. Alone with her, Spike urges her to abandon the life that's grown so hellish for her and choose peace with him, also threatening Buffy to either tell her friends about their sexual relationship or he do it for her. He also leaves Buffy and pours the antidote in the trash. Back to the hospital, Buffy tells the doctor and her parents that she wants to be healthy and rid of thoughts about Sunnydale. The doctor tells her that she has to do what's necessary to destroy the elements that draw her back there, like her family and friends, to truly be healthy. Willow and Buffy are talking in the kitchen. Xander arrives at the house and finds Buffy alone, so he talks to her about Spike and his obsession. This is interrupted when she knocks him out cold and drags him into the basement, where Willow is already bound and gagged. Buffy finds Dawn upstairs and chases her through the house, but Dawn pleads that she is real. She's gagged in the basement with the others, and the chained demon. In the mental hospital, the doctor urged Buffy to make her task easy on herself. So Buffy unchanged the Glark Ghoul Kashmir snake in the basement to kill her friends for her. Xander pleads with Buffy to free his hands, but she retreats under the stairs. Meanwhile, Tara shows up at the house and finds everyone in the basement. She uses magic to free Willow and Dawn and attack the demon, but the Glark Ghoul Kashmir snake is too strong for them. Buffy grabs Tara's leg, making her fall down the stairs and knocking her unconscious. At the hospital, Joyce encourages Buffy to fight against the Sunnydale reality, telling her that she has the strength to fight against the harshness of the world and must fight it because she has people who love her. Buffy thanks her mother for helping her make a choice, and says goodbye to her. Buffy wakes up in Sunnydale to save her friends. She dispatches the demon easily reconciles with her friends, urging them to quickly make her that antidote, while she stays on guard against relapsing again. In the hospital, Buffy's still sitting in the corner of the room, not completely unresponsive as the doctor shines light into her pupils. He tells Buffy's parents that she's gone. Oh. So anyway, let's take a look at some continuity surrounding this episode. Buffy tells Willow about her parents' reaction when she first attempted to tell them about vampires. Joyce only learns and believes about her status as a vampire in Becoming Part 2. I like what she reveals that it happened to her. Ted also threatened to put Buffy in a mental institution based on the contents in her diary about being a slayer. Details of Buffy's time in a mental institution mentioned in this episode are revealed in the non-canon comic prequel, Slayer Interrupted. This episode is the final appearance at the Double Me Palace, although she continues working there until lessons. After Willow sees Tara kiss another woman, she tells Buffy she left so she didn't magic her fist or a wall. The threat of using magic again because of something happened with Tara will come to pass in Seeing Red. The psychiatrist in the hospital provides mental health rationales for many of the incidents that have occurred in recent season, such as Dawn's sudden appearance, Buffy's increasing infamy among Sunnydale's human residents, and especially her death and resurrection. Rhoda and Andrew have the packages with their contents hidden from Jonathan. This culminates on Jonathan secretly helping Buffy against him in Entropy, not having his own jetpack to escape her. Willow go with Tara in Entropy as she planned to ask in this episode, when Tara clarifies the girl she greeted with a kiss was just a friend. Buffy will tell Giles about the events from this episode during their cathartic laughing session in Grave. Buffy tells Spike about Xander leaving Anya at the altar, says he left the wedding early. Xander returns home and visits his friends for the first time, just checking into the Sunnydale Motor Inn in Hell's Bells. And now let's take a look at some production notes from this episode. Despite being credited, Emma Caulfield does not appear in this episode. Director Rick Rosenthal has commented that the ending of this episode was intentionally ambiguous, leaving it to the viewer to decide whether it was real or not. On the theory that this episode revealed Buffy's actual world, Joss Whedon commented, quote, "How important it is in the scheme of the Buffy narrative is really up to the person watching. If they decide that the entire thing is all playing out in some crazy person's head, well, the joke of the thing to us was it is, and that crazy person is me. It was kind of the ultimate postmodern look at the concept of a writer writing a show, which is not the sort of thing we usually do in the show. The show had merit in itself because it did raise the question, how can you live in this world and be sane? But at the same time, the idea amused me very much, and we played on it a little bit. How come her little sister is taller than her? What was Adam's plan? We played on the crazy things we came up with time and time again to make this fantasy show work and call them into question the way any normal person would. Ultimately, the entire series takes place in the mind of a lunatic locked up somewhere in Los Angeles, and that's what the viewer wants. Personally, I think it really happened," end quote. Marty Noxon, in turn, was more direct in denying this theory, quote, "It was a fake out. We were having some fun with the audience. I don't want to denigrate what the whole show has meant. If Buffy's not empowered, then what are we saying? If Buffy's crazy, then there is no girl power. It's all fantasy. And really the whole show stands for the opposite of that, which that it isn't just a fantasy. There should be girls that can kick ass. So I'd really be sad if we made that statement at the end. That's why it's just somewhere in the middle, saying, wouldn't it be funny if, or wouldn't this be sad or tragic if? In my feeling, and I believe in justice as well, that's not the reality of the show. It was just a tease and a trick, end quote. At Comic-Con 2013, while speaking about this episode, Whedon mentioned that during his time writing Astonishing X-Men, he envisioned Cyclops, who was real name Scott Summers, make a reference to a female cousin of his who was sent to a mental institution for believing she was a demon hunter. However, he couldn't find an appropriate place and storyline to fit it in, and therefore it was never featured. This episode's premise of the reality of the series being put in question is similar to the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode Far Beyond the Stars, the Charmed episode Brain Drain, the Stargate Lenses episode The Real World, the Smallville episode Labyrinth, the Supernatural episode What Is and What Should Never Be, and the Magicians episode The World on the Walls. Marty Noxon also refers to the famous ending to series St. Elsewhere, which implies the entire show occurred within the mind of an autistic child. Quote, we made a lot of jokes about the snow globe and St. Elsewhere, but it's not the truth, end quote. Now let's take a look at some pop culture references. Jonathan comments that, because being cooped up with a new layer in Psycho Sleep, it was going Jack Torrance, a reference to the main character in The Shining. Commenting on Slayer's mental state, Warren says that Buffy was tripping like a Ken Russell film festival, referring to the director of the film Altered States, in which the protagonist was under the influence of psychoactive drugs. While Andrew and Warren entered the basement and unload the computer file of SIP plans involving bank vaults, Andrew says, I still think we need 8 more guys for this mission. At first, Warren implies, I never shall let you see that movie, implying the film Ocean's 11. And now finally, let's take a look at some goofs. After throwing Xander into the basement, as Buffy comes up the stairs and locks the door, she inserts the key upside down. In the recap, after Xander asks if Dawn has found anything new about the trio, there was a response as a dub from Buffy, even though it doesn't line up with Dawn's mouth. Interesting. So I think this episode is pretty unique, and yeah, let's just say that, I think that the ending is definitely up to the viewer's interpretation, so yeah. So overall, I give Normal again 5 vampire steaks out of 5. But anyway, tune in a bit as we take the final episode of the day, Entropy. So, until then, here endeth the lesson.